If you're a Star Wars fan, you've seen a Star Wars movie in theaters, most likely. You know that feeling. You're sitting in the theater, the Lucasfilm logo comes up, that one person does the woo, and you say, oh, there's that guy. And then, a long time ago, galaxy far, far away, and the blaring horns, and the yellow logo, and that familiar feeling that you can't replicate anywhere else. We're going to talk about that today. So welcome, everybody, back to the Resistance broadcast. I'm John. Thanks for joining us today. August 4th, me and James holding down the fort. Lacey, at the time of this recording, still had COVID, so she was sitting out. She was thinking about doing her version of the Jordan flu game, but better of her to take care of her and the family and try to get well. So Lacey will be back with us on Monday, so fear not. She will return. So Lacey, we know you're getting better. We talk to you every day, but from the podcast perspective, we'll see you soon, and we miss you. So, and make sure you follow Lacey on Twitter and Instagram at Lacey Gilleran. We'll get her plugs in at the top, James. Right? So, how you doing, buddy? We're gonna be talking movies, dude. Star Wars movies. Remember those?
Yeah, I mean, we touched on this on Monday. So it's kind of one of those interesting things where like I'm still kind of sorting it out, like kind of processing a little bit. Like, oh, what do I want to say here? Because it's one of those toss-ups. Like, do you like ketchup or mustard? It's like I like both. Like it's like I don't know. It's difficult. Can I ask you a personal question though?
Well, it depends, of course. Sure.
Are you one of those people that likes to be corrected when you say something that's not right?
What did I say that's wrong?
You said hold down the fort, and it's just kind of like one of those things where...
Is that wrong?
Well, it would be hold the fort.
It's not hold down the fort?
People say hold down the fort, but it's one of those things that's like, I can't care less, or I couldn't care less, and it's like...
Oh, I say that one right. Yeah,
no,
it's always
I know.
I couldn't care less.
Yeah.
Hold on, I gotta look this up now. It's not hold down the fort?
Well, the phrase is hold down the fort, but but it doesn't, that phrase doesn't make any sense. What people mean to say is hold the fort, because that's what you do when like somebody's like leaving the fort, they tell somebody else to hold the fort. But why hold down the fort doesn't make any sense. Nobody's physically making sure that the fort doesn't get blown away by wind or something. Anyway,
interesting. Yeah.
Even if nobody changes the way they say that,
right.
It's one of those things that's kind of...
No, I like being corrected in that instance, but I feel like it has become one of those things that is now morphed into its own entity.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's one of those things that... There's another big one for me, which is begs the question, which like everybody says it in... What they mean to say is, which raises the question, but because begging the question is something completely different. Look it up. It's kind of...
How do you beg a question? Right.
It's actually really complicated to explain. It's almost a philosophical concept, but people say begs the question when they mean to say raise the question.
Right. It's one that always bothers me is when people say for all intensive purposes.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I actually got like a personal...
Did you get intensive purposed?
No, they were like, hey man, just real quick, like, I think you just went up a notch in my book because you said that correctly. They were like, people say that wrong, and I just noticed that naturally you said that correctly, like you pronunciated what it should be. And so I'll always remember somebody being like, I'm glad you said that right, James.
It's always a good feeling to know that you got something right. Now the question is, I mean, we have a segment to start the show.
Absolutely.
So we'll get to that. But I want you to start, if you're listening or you're watching, I want you to start thinking about it right now. Like, where do you stand heading into our discussion later? Do you yearn for the Star Wars big budget, huge theatrical movie? Or are you like, I think this is Star Wars now, this Disney Plus live action, this is sort of the lane now. So I want you to, like, your first instinct, where are you now? And then we'll check in after our discussion, see what me and James get into, and we may even surprise ourselves, right, James, as we often do here on the pod. So we will march forward. Lacey, again, get well, but it's time to kick things off with our first segment. And what is it, James?
I fear nothing, for all is as the Force wills it.
Will of the Force. We have a couple questions here, including ones that come from our patrons, as they have the opportunity as a patron to submit questions. We'll get to theirs in a second, but we have a few here that we wrote of our own. The first one being, will we see Saw Gerrera suffer his lung and or leg injuries in Andor? So kind of an interesting question.
You start this one based on, we did cheat and have a pre-discussion on this.
A little bit of one, yeah, because I thought, I reached out to John and I said, hey, this question might want to be rethought, because as of Rebels, which when we saw Rebels, when we saw Saw Gerrera in that show, it was 2 years before that, before the Battle of Yavin, and he was fine. He did not seem to have a leg injury or any sort of breathing apparatus. So
he's a marathon runner.
Yeah, my thought correctly at this point would be, no, it would not be a point of Andor if Saw Gerrera makes an appearance in the show, that he has any sort of thing that alludes to like what's the hot tub time machine? Like, oh, so that's how he loses his arm kind of situation.
Yeah.
I don't think if they bring in Saw Gerrera, I don't think that's something that they need to address or mention, especially because of the timeline aspect here. We're 5 years before the Battle of Yavin, and we've already seen him 2 years in the Battle of Yavin. But what are your thoughts?
There's the whole season 2 aspect, and that's where this could happen. It depends on how cute Lucasfilm wants to get with it. I mean, he's coming back for season 1 at least. I know they pushed K2 to season 2. I don't know that they confirmed it, but they had him march. They had Alan Tudyk march out there with Diego Luna when they announced the series. My theory about that whole thing, you may have listened already on the podcast, is Gilroy pulled that back because he wants to focus season 1 solely on Cassian without distractions or humor. Get him in the mix, maybe a little more familiarity from Rogue One, so keep Saw around for season 2, and maybe we do see why we get that sort of like estranged and mind warped and sort of tweaked out version of Saw Gerrera by the end of Rogue One. So
I think
I'm gonna say yes. I think we will see something happen to him that is jarring enough to, again, lift elements of Rogue One up. Why not do that? So you'll have that window. If each 3 episodes of season 2 represent a year, that means in the back half, so episodes 7 through 12 of season 2, Saw Gerrera is getting hurt.
Yeah, he'd have to show up in the last 3 episodes and have some
6.
sort of significance to be like, I'm here, and boom, did we get wrecked?
Yep.
Or at least showcase that, like, at that point they show him and he does resemble the Rogue One thing. But I don't know, man. I mean, even in Rogue One, they're like, where's Saw? We haven't worked with him in a while, so I don't know.
True. Yeah, he could very well show up like you're saying without us seeing it happen to him. Yeah, that's a good point.
All right, we got another one here, and this one is from one of our patrons, specifically Danny, who they go by at Simplify Danny.
Hi, Danny.
Danny wanted to know, will the Mandalorian culmination event that has been spoken about lead to some pre-Force Awakens character origin stories or First Order related spin-off stories on Disney Plus? This took me a second. I'm going to reread it just because when I read it originally, I was like, what is being said here? So it's, when we get to that Mandalorian culmination event, will that lead to some pre-Force Awakens character origin stories, or maybe some First Order related stories for Disney Plus, spin-off characters or situations about those things. John, what do you think on this one?
First Order, no. We already got the sort of Hux and Phasma stuff through the books. They won't do Kylo Ren off of Mando. Snoke doesn't seem likely, especially with what they wound up doing with him. And then I don't know about like who else would get a Force Awakens origin story that, like, they're not gonna do Rey, of course. I just don't know. I don't think so. I think they may touch on First Order, like the seed of the First Order by the end of this Mando Plus that they called it at the Star Wars Celebration. But I think that's it. They'll do it in that. I don't think we're going to get any sort of offshoot that has to do with leading up to the sequel trilogy. I think for a lot of reasons that I won't really get into in terms of like public perception and stuff, I think they want to keep a solid bridge between the Mando stuff and sequel trilogy.
Funny you say that. Like, well, I do kind of agree that the thing could end with the culmination event, but assuming that they do that, that's Avengers, and then they go phase 2, and they just keep going, right? Mm-hmm. It does make sense to me that we would get some First Order related stuff, because at that point, I think we all know where the story's going. We all know it is leading up to The Force Awakens. And at that point, when the movie happens, that's when the Force awakens and everything changes. So
you think spinoffs then?
So Force-related things, to me, I think around that time need to kind of take a step back. I think what does lead around that time are the Phasma meets First Order kind of stuff. The things that there could be characters very heavily involved in, like, the Resistance who work for Leia, who's off screen, and they're learning about this branch of people, and they're calling themselves the First Order. Oh, that's just a theory. They're not real. Like, it's that kind of stuff. I think there could be some cool espionage stuff that happens, even from the perspective of someone that's maybe joining the First Order, like they're starting to see the benefits or why that would be around. And because we definitely got some of those stories where there were political parties and stuff that were like, they weren't like coming out and saying it, but like they were like, hey, we liked what the Empire was doing, and we're kind of gonna back them financially off the record. That stuff was going on. So I think it could be really cool. I'm just not really sure. I mean, and Mandalorian already is kind of playing in the world of like the Empire is not supposed to be around, but there are these weird like cultist people who are into it, And so I like the idea that it could be that after they feel like they've defeated the Empire, they've defeated their groups, these new First Order people are starting to show up, and they're like, Mandalorian might be taking on First Order troopers soon.
Which begs the question.
Raises the question.
Then you have to maybe introduce elements of Palpatine, because it's his whole plan. So
I mean, they already, like with the M count and the clones or whatever mutants in the tubes.
Right. It's an interesting question, so thank you, Danny, for sending that in.
Absolutely. We got another one here that says, will we see Ezra Bridger fight with a lightsaber in the present in the Ahsoka series? So obviously we're not talking about if they were showing some sort of flashback to what Ezra used to be like, and Sabine's like remembering a battle with him or something. Like we're talking like, is this guy in the present time, post Return of the Jedi, is he going to be using a lightsaber? If I'm going first, if I'm going first here, I'm going to say yes. And the reason I think that is because it's kind of strange, and don't get too upset with this answer, but in my mind, I sort of think of him as the third twin. Being
why
born.
would I get upset about that? Okay.
Because I don't know, Luke and Leia are sort of a thing, and like, why would Ezra be the third? I mean, but my thing is like, I think of him as like, if Luke and Leia were in the movies, Ezra is the Luke character who's that right age. He's supposed to be that story of like, he doesn't know about the Force and he learns about the Force, and he eventually starts with a blue lightsaber, gets a green lightsaber.
Left his home.
Yeah, he's very much like following that Luke sort of
that's fair.
story, and he's born one day before them. So he's right in the right age for that too. So when I start thinking,
watched his mentor die. There's a lot of parallels.
Yeah. So when I think of them bringing this character in, I think of him like Ahsoka and Sabine are like Rey, and they're like looking for Luke, like, oh, I thought he was a myth. You know what I mean? They're almost like when the audience hears about Ezra, they're going to be like, why do we care about Ezra? When he shows up, he has to be awesome. He has to really like showcase how powerful he was in the Force, and why he's important, and why they're searching for him, and why do we care about this person. When he shows up, he needs to be cool. And I think they're going to make him cool like they made Luke cool in Mandalorian season 2.
That's a good point, man. Did he have his lightsaber with him when he went to wherever he went with the Purgles and Thrawn?
That is a good question. I can't remember off the top of my head if he no, he surely did not give it to Sabine, because he snuck out. Like, he didn't tell her he was going. I think he did take it with him.
Yeah.
But the famous scene, he doesn't have it out. It's pocketed away, or he lost it earlier or something. I'm going to assume he has it though.
So depending on what his situation is, whether he's held captive or he's just somewhere and he like forgot who he is, there's an amnesia thing, or like what, or he's just like off somewhere and lost. Either way, I say yes for sure, because he's a Jedi and it's live action Ezra, and like the first thing we saw of Ahsoka was her lightsabers. Like, they just went for it. So I think it'd be kind of cool if maybe he doesn't have his lightsaber, if someone took it, or you know, whatever, and Ahsoka like tosses him one of hers, and they both use the white ones for a little while, and then he gets his back or something. But either way, I think we're seeing whoever's playing him, we're seeing Ezra Bridger get down with some lightsaber action for sure in Ahsoka.
Or he just pulls the, like, I don't need a lightsaber, like, you know, like kind of
like
stuff.
Big time with the Force, yeah.
Like Ahsoka and Sabine find themselves in a predicament, and he shows up, and he doesn't even need the weapons that like Ahsoka has. But that's weird though, because that's saying that he's more powerful than Ahsoka, and I don't even want to get in that, really, you know, that comparison. So,
that's rough.
But anyway, we got another question here, and this one is coming from another one of our patrons, specifically Nerd Coma. Nerd Coma wanted to know, it's not derogatory, this is his name.
Yeah, that's right.
They wanted to know, will Andor have a character-centric episode like Mando's Ahsoka episode, or Book of Boba Fett's Mando episode, to build on a future spin-off series? So, you know, we always get that one episode where it sidesteps for a second or gives the focus on a different person. Do you think that we're going to see that in Andor?
No, I don't. I think that's a Mandoverse thing, Mando Plus thing. I don't think Tony Gilroy has any interest in serving another story that he doesn't know who's in charge of it. I don't think he wants to dabble in that sort of thing. I think he wants to tell his story and stay in his story, which starts 5 BBY and takes us through Rogue One, and then he says, see you, Star Wars. So I don't think so at all, and I'm almost like on a book it situation. I don't think we're going to get anything. I don't think we're going to get anything like that. That would be a spinoff away from Andor. They may give us an episode where it's, you know, K2, and then he at the end of the episode he winds up with Cassian. I'm not counting that, because that's a part of this. I'm saying, like, are they going to give us an episode of someone else to go launch them on some other story? No, I don't think so.
I was going to say yes to this, but that is a really good point. That I think that this particular
Thanks, buddy.
series is not meant to open up into other rebellion stories around this time. I think they would be smart to do that because, you know, it's very easy to bring in someone that he works with, like an Enfys Nest character or something like that, you know.
Oh yeah.
That you could very well say, okay, well, that was that one episode where they work with that person, and we're kind of gauging how fans felt about that particular character so that we could do this other show. But I think you're right that Tony Gilroy is like, yeah, whatever. If you like one of my characters, you can have him. But like, I'm not writing an episode for your later spin-off stuff.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. But I think, like, if you were looking at the overall picture and Tony was playing ball in that sense, that they were like, hey, you got to give us something because we like the idea of there being different spies in this area. We don't always want to do it with Diego Luna, and we don't always want to do it from this perspective of a character. We want to maybe have a different spy show around this rebellion time. Can we maybe sneak in a character like that? I think that would be smart, but I think you're right on this. There's something about the fact that he just kind of does it. He's like, this is my show. And then when I'm done with it, then that's what it was.
Yeah.
It was a limited series. It's not supposed to be like, you know, Family Matters, like, hope we get a 5th, 7th season or whatever it is, you know. I don't know why I went Family Matters. I just pulled any sort of like sitcom, but
for like a Stefan spinoff.
Yeah,
series?
the point is like to not keep having season 3, season 4, season 5. If people like it, we'll keep going, you know. It's supposed to be one single story, and I think that's his goal.
I think now that you mention it, I mean, let's just do it. I think Family Matters is technically a spin-off of Perfect Strangers.
No,
because
Perfect. Is that what it's called? Perfect Strangers?
Yeah, Harriet Winslow worked in the same office as Larry. And she was the same character. I think she was Harriet Winslow.
Oh, it is called... Yeah, I'm agreeing with you that it is that show, but for some reason you saying Perfect Strangers seemed not right. Like it was something else very close to that. But no, you're right. It is Perfect Strangers. Yeah, there's a lot of shows that are spin-offs. Actually, I think that show also takes place in the Full House universe.
Does it?
I think so, because they had Michelle at a birthday party or something like that in Family Matters. So there was like they were technically related somehow.
Well, I think like Charles in Charge was ultimately I think he's the same character from like Happy Days, Chachi.
Really? I don't know if you're joking or not. Okay.
No, I think that might be. I think that there's truth to that.
I think it's pretty interesting how certain shows do step off of each other, and like you would never know other than like the pilot episode has like one thing. I mean, I think people knew the Frasier one, but like really, if you're watching Frasier, you wouldn't be like, why does this feel like Cheers? Like it doesn't.
Well, they had a lot of cameos. So,
well, I know, but I don't think you would watch Frasier and be like, why does this feel like Cheers? No. It's like, well, it was a spin-off show. It was the same vibe. They just wanted to keep making it. Like, for instance, like if you're watching How I Met Your Father, you're going to be like, why does this feel like How I Met Your Mother? You know, it's like very clearly the spin-off was the adaptation to keep going. But some of these shows really don't even have that vibe.
No. Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, that's going to be it for Will of the Force this week, and we are getting ready to head into a big discussion. So let's get started. What do we got, John?
All right. This week's discussion: do Star Wars fans already miss the theatrical films?
Obi-Wan once thought as you do.
All right. So Star Wars continues to put out live-action content on Disney Plus. Though there seems to be a little bit of a buzz and yearning for the big budget spectacle event, get your popcorn, big screen Star Wars theatrical experience via the films. So the last Star Wars film came out Carry the one 3 years ago, episode 9. That's why I'm wearing my I Am All the Jedi shirt, which we used to sell. But there's a growing sense that fans already miss the movies. So let's just talk about it, James. I think I'll just start by saying it's like a weird like double-edged sword here. I loved Obi-Wan Kenobi, but I also watched Kevin Smets, who you probably know from the Schmodown. He is an editor. He's a video editor and TV editor. And he did a cut of Obi-Wan that was 2.5 hours long. I know there was the viral one, but he did his version, and I watched that, and I just loved it. And I was like, man, add more effects to this and put it on the big screen. This would have been a massive movie. And I know that was originally the plan. It just, I feel like parts of Obi-Wan made me realize, and you brought this up too in one of the episodes. You're like, I felt like we were watching that show in the volume. And I think it was the one where they were all trapped on that planet, and Vader was like cornering them. It felt like they were in like almost like quite literally a
they're trying to get the ship
room.
out of the thing.
Yes.
and
and it was great. I still loved it, but it did feel a little claustrophobic. And not all of them have felt that way. There's a lot of episodes of The Mandalorian that felt big, and I think there's gonna be more big stuff coming with Andor, but that was more location based. But I guess to try to hone in on my point. I really do miss like the way they tell stories in the movies and the budget they put in there, and I think also watching Light and Magic made me miss that journey and how they make the movies. And I know it's different in how they make them from a VFX perspective in a lot of ways, but just I don't know, man. I do miss a lot of aspects of seeing a Star Wars movie in theaters, and I feel like it's still, as much content as we're getting on Disney Plus, there's a void. I feel a void, and people are gonna say this in the YouTube comments. I guarantee it. Maybe even without watching, they'll just put their comments in, or on Twitter they'll just say like, again, like I brought up Monday, there were gaps, plenty of years without a Star Wars movie. You don't want to make them not feel special. I think that time is over. I think we're beyond that. I'm not saying you need a Star Wars movie every year. One every 3 years, I think works. I don't know. That's where I'll start. But I really feel like Kenobi, as much as I loved it, has made me yearn more for the Star Wars film. And I'm not sure exactly why that is. Was it that cut I saw? Was it just thinking like what this would be like on the big screen? Or is it just simply like the effects aren't there the way they were in the movies, or location shoots? It could be a lot of things. So I don't know. What do you think of that, James? And what's your initial thought as you stand today? And has it changed over time?
I don't know that this is my personal opinion, but generally when this gets brought up of like, will Lucasfilm pursue movies? I tend to think that Lucasfilm is saying, no, we're cool passing on movies now. We don't need them. We've got television. We've got subscriptions. We've got, that thing that's filling the void when, like when people say, you have Star Wars and you're not making any movies, they go, oh, but we're still making Star Wars content. We have a lot of it, and it's leading Disney Plus in a lot of ways. Like, and Disney Plus is huge. So it's like, I mean, Disney Plus is competing with Hulu and Prime Video and Netflix. It might not be totally in the same numbers, but I think when people have a discussion of like the top 5 that they get, Disney Plus is always in that conversation. Like if I had to pick 3, there's like maybe like 6 top streaming services. Disney Plus is usually one of them.
Yeah. No doubt.
I feel like that's Lucasfilm's kind of look at it, but I do kind of feel like what fans might be missing is the community of it. Because I actually feel like there is something. The thing that's missing to me is driving past somewhere and seeing the line. And we talked about the toys. Nobody's lining up for the Kenobi toys, So it's like I feel like there was even when you're looking at Solos and Rogue Ones, there was kind of this period of time where it's like, oh, the new toys came out and everybody was like running to Target or Walmart, and then you'd like see people walk by you, they'd notice you have a Star Wars shirt on and they go, they only have so and so, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, you know why I'm here? You're here too. Okay, all right, we're all doing the same thing. Right. I feel like there's kind of something missing there, because even though we're all paying, they're making their money, they're making their bottom line, we're all sitting in our houses not communicating with other fans except for online. And we need to be having that connection in person. We need to be having the conversation with the person who's in line waiting to get the tickets or waiting to see the movie.
When was the first time you went to a Star Wars movie? Oh man, mine was Phantom Menace. Mine was Special Edition. Yeah,
like,
man.
Oh, did you watch Rise of Skywalker here? And it's like, yeah, I mean, it's the only IMAX around, so you know, you kind of have that conversation. I was here too. What day did you see it? Oh, the opening night. Oh, same theater. What are the, you know?
Oh, you got that poster? I got it too. Oh yeah.
I feel like that is something that we might be hungry for, and I think part of that reason is too that all movies have sort of been missing in a way. Like, I think we all kind of took the bait on like, you know, oh, the Gray Man's in theaters, but it's also on Netflix like 2 weeks from now, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, that looks really good, but I think I could just wait and I'll watch it at home, you know? Oh, I could go see Lightyear, or I could just wait like a month and a half after release, like 90 days or something like that. And it's already going to be on Disney Plus here, like today or tomorrow or something, right? Yesterday, I think maybe.
But it's also how they treat it, isn't it? Like
what?
Like I know on this podcast and a lot of people say this, so we're not inventing the complaint, so to speak, but the whole 3 a.m. East Coast drop, you're treating it like a file dump. It's just like if you throw that thing on at 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. and the family can sit on the couch together, have some popcorn, and like maybe the kids are still up and, you know, whatever, and you could all sit there and watch the episode together, as opposed to, man, I gotta watch this thing before work. I gotta, you know, I don't want to be spoiled online, so I gotta watch this thing all groggy-eyed and then go to work. And it's just, you can't enjoy it that way.
I'm not taking that away from you, but I think that families still do that. I think there's the one guy in the family who, I think they want to see it, but they wait that evening, Friday or Wednesday evening, to watch it with their family or something like that. What I actually think you're missing is the weekly party where they go,
everyone all at once.
Like, hey, all of my friends, like, they invite their friend group over and we all sit in the living room together and we watch the show as it airs. People do that for other shows, and it's just not possible. The people that are interested in it with the 3 a.m. drop, they go, well, you know, I'm gonna watch with my family, but with their friend's like, well, I'm gonna watch it at 3 a.m. There's nothing holding me back, so they don't watch it together. You know, you got to have it drop at a time when everybody can do it. But this isn't even the point. This isn't the discussion. But I think that
it's not. But it's important. It's important.
Even if they were doing that, it might change how we feel about it having a theatrical movie, because we are getting that actual real life connection with other people when we're watching it with them.
The other thing, man, is just from a story perspective. You know, when I was watching, I'm not going to get into spoilers or anything, but I was watching, you know, like Stranger Things, and, you know, their last episode of the season was like 2 hours and 20 minutes. It's an episode of a show. And I'm just thinking about some of the story threads and stuff. I'm like, they stretch out so much of this stuff on these shows because they want to fill the content and they want the watch hours. And I understand all of that. But like, if you think about, like, man, it's so weird how we've had way more time with this Star Wars character, with Boba Fett, than we've had with, you know, Han Solo, or, you know, anyone who's just been only in the movies. Like, we had 7 episodes of Boba Fett. All of a sudden now we have all this screen time with Boba Fett. But when you think about it, like, he really didn't do a whole lot. But they just stretch that, so they really slow it down, stretch out the dough, and make a thin crust as opposed to like a real hearty meal. And like you watch a Star Wars movie and you're like, there's a lot to take out of that, take away from what I just experienced. Where if you took those story threads and like, no, well, if this was a series, you really got to like thin it out and like do these like, not using the word filler, but you take things and tell them in a way longer, stretched out way than you need to on the streaming version. And I think it's almost like a magic trick in a way, whereas like that Kenobi, I don't want to go back to too much, but like the Kenobi cuts out there, like I felt like I got the whole story. I felt like I got the whole experience without anything really being cut from me in 2.5 hours versus 5 or whatever it ended up being, or 6. So I think that's an aspect of it. I think I enjoy the way movies tell me a story. I still love the streaming shows and stuff like that. But I feel like for Star Wars, I just like how much impact those movies give you in a 2 hour and 15 minute thing.
Digestibility has always been something that I have been touting when it comes to like TV versus the movies. I've always said that I loved The Mandalorian. I loved the Book of Boba Fett, but it's very hard to really actually rewatch it. I feel like the most accomplished people will say like, oh, I've watched Boba Fett 5 times, the Book of Boba Fett 5 times. It's like, wow, dude, that's a lot. You must really be awesome. But let me tell you this. 5 times? I went and paid to see Rogue One more than 5 times. You know, I know people who went and paid to see Force Awakens 10 times. You know what I mean? It's like those numbers are very rookie in comparison. It's just because they're so long. It's like I want to be able to rewatch and feel comfortable about throwing Solo on or throwing on the Force Awakens, The Empire Strikes Back or something, and just being able to kind of get through the original trilogy in like 6 hours. Whereas like if I spent 6 hours in the Mandoverse, I would be just over that first season and kind of into the second season, but I still have Book of Boba Fett season 3, Ahsoka, every other spinoff to get through that story. It's like, oh my gosh, I think there's just almost too much in that type of storytelling. And like you said, in some ways too, even though there's all that content, it feels stretched out. And
some people like that. Some people who feel like The Rise of Skywalker was rushed. Fine. I
or
felt
it's
that
like
way when I first
too
saw it.
much
I was like, wow.
story. Every turn had like another big twist or something, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's just exposition in every scene. Like it didn't ever breathe because it just was paced so quickly.
But are you going to put on a Star Wars movie, and this is how I would see it if I was to go rewatch a random chapter of one of these shows, is I'm going to toss on Return of the Jedi. I'm going to start where they blow up the bunker. It's like, I'm going to watch Mandalorian Chapter 6. I don't like watching Star Wars that way. I like watching beginning to end. So it's tough for me, and I really haven't done a lot of rewatching of the shows for that reason. It's difficult for me to do that. Maybe more so with a last episode of a season, because you do get a sense of finality to it. But I'm not popping on Chapter 5 of The Mandalorian. Like, that's just not happening. And it doesn't mean I love it, but it's just not happening. I'm never like, I want to watch that right now. And I know a lot of people probably do that. It's just, I don't. So I think that's another reason why I lean more towards Van. I miss the movies. And we haven't even gotten into the just theater experience itself, which, like seeing like the Top Gun movie that you, me, and Lacey saw together. It's just like, I would have hated to have watched that movie on my TV at home compared to how we saw that. It's just like some movies, like if it's a comedy or a drama and you're like, in 2 weeks that's coming out. All right, I can wait to see, Seth Rogen do something. But if it's a Star Wars movie or something big, Guardians of the Galaxy, Top Gun, something where it's like big, massive effects and huge action, I feel like it's must see on the big screen, and I think like imagine seeing Chapter 9 of The Mandalorian on a big screen with the Krayt Dragon. Like that would have been like watching a Jaws movie or something, like a good Jaws movie.
I saw a post recently, like somebody on Twitter that said, to this day, this is the most cinematic thing we've gotten on television. And it was Chapter 9 of the Book of Boba Fett with the thing. And I was like, dude, the fact that there's a scene in the movie where they move into like the IMAX, I mean, it's not exactly, but it's they
and you
stretch
even just
the
said
aspect.
movie.
Yeah, but they move into the aspect ratio and they raise it to full screen. I'm like,
when Boba Fett shows
that
up,
that is absolutely a like Blade Runner, Mission Impossible, Batman, Dark Knight move.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's like a cinematic wow moment, you know? And it's like, well, you know, we're filling out your 16:9 46-inch TV, you know?
And who directed it? Favreau.
Yeah, absolutely.
What? So, and you and I, you know, we got a chance to see the first 2 episodes of Obi-Wan Kenobi in a theater experience.
That was crazy. It wasn't even a theater, man. It was an arena, and that's like, yeah, it was like one of the most elevated movie things I've ever experienced. That
was cool because you got the crowd reaction. It felt like watching a Star Wars movie in theaters. And that's like another thing that like ticked off in my head. I was like, wow, like I do miss this, you know? I don't always like being in the theater because I really don't like, you know, how people can be rude sometimes, or there's a bright cell phone on or something and people are talking or whatever, loud eaters sometimes. But with Star Wars, if it's like opening day, the movie's loud, you know, you don't really, you get lost in the movie and that stuff doesn't matter. But the audience and the crowd reactions and stuff you still hear. And like when I saw the orchestra, Star Wars: A New Hope with the orchestra, huge, you know, theater, giant, you know, balconies and all that sort of thing. Seeing people watch that movie and reacting to it, laughing at moments, I'm like, this is an experience. This is an event. It's a 40-something-year-old movie and people are still enjoying it. So don't tell me if they put out a new Star Wars movie every 2 years or so, people aren't going to be still energized about it. I think they will. It's the content that you give the people, not the amount of movies. Because no one's tiring on Marvel. Those movies are still making a lot of money, even in this sort of COVID thing that's still happening. So, and they're not stopping. They got the next 4 years planned out of movies and Disney Plus series. So that other whole argument of, well, you're still getting your Star Wars through the series. It's like, yeah, Marvel's doing that too. And they have 12 movies coming out.
They not only announced their next phase, they announced movies for the phase after that.
Yeah, exactly. I know. It's nuts, dude. It is absolutely nuts. And I get that there's different, you know, they have the source material. I understand all that stuff. Multiverse, bringing back old actors, the fan service thing. I get all that. But, you know, with Star Wars, you know, we've already like run through a lot of the reasons to miss the experience. And I know a lot of it can't be replicated anymore in terms of like what I did with the Phantom Menace, which is me and my friends skipped school and we camped out for tickets. Like that experience doesn't exist anymore, and I understand that. But like you said, still going to the theater, waiting in that line to be let into the theater, talking to strangers, they may be in cosplay, someone in a Jedi robe, you know, hearing somebody with their kid saying like, this is her first Star Wars movie, or man, I saw the original movie when I was 5, or you just hear these stories from people, and Twitter can't give you that. Like people can be online talking about these shows and stuff. It pales in so many possible comparisons. So I really do miss it. I do believe in Kathleen Kennedy when she's saying they are looking for somebody to be the shepherd for the future of Star Wars movies. I do think we're going to get Daisy Ridley back one day. I think they are, I repeat this a lot, I do think they are waiting for the generation that was the 5-year-old seeing their first movie as The Force Awakens to be a little older and maybe have a little more influence and have a voice and stuff like that. So maybe we're 10 years out or whatever, but I don't know. It's interesting. Or like we said in on Monday's episode, you know, Old Republic, you know, we were all 3 of us, I think we're talking Game of Thrones style TV show. And I think we're rethinking that because of the budget they're putting towards these series. But that brings up another question, which is important in terms of how we compare the shows and why we want movies, at least for me. Doesn't it feel like the budget for the Star Wars shows feel less than like Stranger Things or even some of the Marvel stuff? Like when I compared even Obi-Wan to the new Stranger Things season, I'm like, Stranger Things effects look way better than Obi-Wan Kenobi's, and it feels like sad to say that to Star Wars. Star Wars is supposed to be the one that sets the bar. Again, Light and Magic just came out. We saw the innovation that carried through today with ILM. Just hearing that Star Wars has taken a backseat, in my opinion, and how its effects are compared to the biggest show that's out today, stings a little as a Star Wars fan.
Man, I agree with you. Like, I think I don't know. It's hard to put like something like The Volume just away so quickly. You know, the fact that Star Wars led the charge with The Mandalorian as saying like, we invented this technology, and everybody is like in awe of how powerful it is, and all those Marvel shows and stuff are starting to adopt that technology and use that technology. And who was leading the charge? Star Wars. But it is kind of funny that it almost feels like we've gotten so used to The Volume now that we're almost using it as a negative. Like, I can tell you're just standing in the volume. You know?
Right.
It's almost like
look for the volume. Yeah.
Yeah. It's any case where, like, you know, there's a movie that comes out, and, you know, it's like Jurassic Park, and no one had ever seen anything like it or whatever. And now that you've introduced all of the music and all of the characters and what it is like to see a dinosaur or whatever, no sequel can compare to that. If there was not Jurassic Park and then The Lost World was the first movie, everybody would have been like, holy crap, The Lost World is freaking amazing. Like, look what they did with these dinosaurs, and the character of Ian is so awesome and complex, you know what I mean? Like, that movie would have been good, but oftentimes sequels to stories are looking for the same feeling when they got all of it. Actually, we kind of make this comparison a lot when we said, like, is The Last Jedi score as good as The Force Awakens score? No. Why? Because The Force Awakens score gave us all those songs for the first time. It felt like it was a powerhouse of like, we got this song and this song and this song and this song. Yeah. And then you go to the next one and it's like, well, it's a lot of those same songs we already had. What are the new ones? Okay, we got like 2 new ones and they're all right, you know, or something. I think that we're definitely looking at the technology of the volume and stuff as a little bit of the like sequel right now. Because I still think what they're doing in Obi-Wan Kenobi is great and it's awesome, but now that, and maybe it's just us, you know, maybe it's because we talk about the volume like every turn of the phrase.
No, I don't think so.
You think other people are saying like, I don't know, it just kind of feels like they're standing on a set.
Or like that, you know, T-47, you know, the snow spear.
Oh, that's
weird,
right.
Or, you know, or that looked like it was out of Sharknado or something. I'm like, you know, I hate to say it, but you have a fair point. That is a fair point to make. In 2022, that's the best we can go. And, well, let's not forget, you know, our buddy Alex Backus from Black Series Rebels had brought up to us the whole 30-mile zone thing. You know, he's a filmmaker. He know, you know, and him and Steve are in the industry and they know like the labor laws and stuff. And
to clarify, you know, for anybody who didn't know that's what TMZ stands for.
Yeah. So it's called Studio Zone also. And it's this radius around that Southern California area that they don't try to breach for the sake of, you know, per diem costs for contractors and how much they pay these people. And that to me right there, I mean, I don't know why Cassian is the outlier. Is it because they had to film that in UK because of who it was? You know, Tony Gilroy. Yeah, Andor. Yeah. Cassian's going to be the prequel to Andor from when he's ages 1 to 5.
Yeah, exactly.
So it'll be
Diego
Cassian,
Luna
Andor,
still playing the
Rogue One. Yeah. Right. Yes, he will be 50 playing a 5-year-old. That's what they're gonna do. Yeah. So dating back to our episode on Monday where James blew my mind that a 42-year-old man's playing a 21-year-old in Andor, but he's a young-looking guy. So good for you, Diego Luna. So that points that this whole 30-mile zone where they can't breach that radius around where the main studio is where they're filming, to me is a point of fact that they have budget concerns, and there are labor union laws and stuff, and I don't know how much they would have to increase their budget to go beyond that, but that's why you see those planets that look like it's off of a highway in LA, but if you have Obi-Wan and Leia meeting up with Zach Braff's alien, and you're like, I bet if you turn the camera a little bit, there's a highway there or something.
Also, don't forget the fact that we were lucky Zach Braff's character was even an alien, considering we go to like Tatooine and everybody's human.
Yeah,
and it's like
fair.
That's a budget issue, but it's weird and takes you out of place. It's not even special effects, but it's like it's very noticeable when you're like walking around the town, and you're like, when Luke was walking around the town, it felt like there was aliens everywhere. And now I'm seeing this, and it's like there's like one alien in that group.
And I don't want to spoil. You haven't watched all of Light and Magic yet, right?
No.
So this is from the original Star Wars, so whatever. George Lucas said they were filming in the UK, the cantina scene, and he was upset at the lack of aliens that they were able to have on the set in the Mos Eisley cantina. So then when they went back, he wanted to pick it up when they went back to California, and he had them creating puppets and all this stuff to populate more aliens in there. So that was always something George Lucas wanted, was more aliens, more aliens, more aliens.
Even the special editions, they were like, that guy looks a little like a dude in a costume.
Yes.
Let's replace him with some fantastical creature.
Or add people around him. Yeah, all that sort of stuff. So it makes me wonder, because let's think about the prequels. He went like real hard on the digital effects. All the droid army were all CG for the most part. The clone troopers completely all CG. They never even had a practical helmet. They had real sets for Phantom Menace. They did a lot more green screen stuff when they went to Australia for the Attack of the Clones. And people were like, this is the future. This is amazing. I can't believe what they just did with this. And then people got sick of it. And then what happens? The revolution. J.J. Abrams comes back in 2015 to promote The Force Awakens, and he purposely has a puppet walking behind him when he's doing his first like Force for Change thing, and they're like, real sets, practical effects. And
Maz's
people are like,
cantina, barely a human in sight.
Yes, and they're like, yeah, Star Wars, it's tangible again, yeah. And now it's like, we got the volume. Now we don't have to go to Tunisia, and everyone's like, hell yeah, the volume's awesome. I can't see anything, and now we're like, ooh. So my thought is, because in the sequel trilogy and other the spin-offs, they did a good job of finding the happy medium where it's like some of this set here is practical and we blended in CG with it. They did a hybrid that made it really good. Like when the stormtroopers get blown up by the X-wing on Takodana and explode out, there's CG and practical stuff there. When Luke tears down the hut when they're touching the fingers in The Last Jedi, there's a lot of practical stuff there, but of course CG stuff with Rian Johnson. So both directors did it. And I think that's the key, which leads me to now, the volume I think is good, but I think they should use it and mix it in while also going to locations and do it that way so it doesn't all feel like that. Because I don't think it's just the diehard fans. I think everyone's sort of feeling the enclosed vibe of what that presents and what that can give you.
I think that's why Mandalorian still is sort of surviving a little bit, because we can look at episodes of Mandalorian and feel like there are aliens. It seems like when I'm thinking about like the first episodes of like both seasons, there's very particular scenes where there's a lot of aliens around,
Also a lot of horizons. It's almost like Jon Favreau made sure there were a lot of horizons, and that it felt like you were seeing for miles in The Mandalorian, where I don't feel like we got a lot of that in Kenobi.
I mean, we did on that final episode, because it was like the big forest rocky area, and then like the big horizon on the other side. Yes,
but it was dusky and dark.
No, I got you. I got you. For most of those episodes, it does feel like almost like we've built up this set so that there's rocks around a character or something.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh man, I could almost kind of picture what this set looks like. And you guys have the dust on the floor.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of when the rocks they're like trapped in The Last Jedi in the bunker and the little foxes are able to sneak through. Mm-hmm. Like it feels just very like the rocks are just on top of them and they're like in this like cave all the time or in this like room all the time or something.
It reminds me of
Mando,
I hear you.
Favreau made sure.
It reminds me of like Disney World and other places where they only have like so much space, so they build their building just tall enough so that no person can see the other ride that's behind it, or something like that. So they're trying to use their space as best as possible, but there is something that's kind of like maybe I can't quite put my finger on it, but this isn't normal. Something's weird here.
Dude, when they make Star Wars movies, I don't want to hear that they're using the volume for all this. And I know like Taika, I think, used the volume a lot for Thor, and people are complaining about some of the effects in that. I want JJ or whoever to go to Wadi Rum. I want them to go to the mountains of Italy for Vandor. Like, you have the money. You're one of the biggest, if not the biggest, movie studio in the world, Disney. Like, I want to make sure when they do bring back the Star Wars movies that they don't try to cut those corners there too. That would be such a massive mistake. I know the technology is amazing, and if you have the right director like a Jon Favreau or showrunner like a Jon Favreau, he'll get the most out of it because he's almost the one who sort of like brought that to the table via his work it was either Jungle Book or Lion King.
I was gonna say, or someone who just wants to push the technology forward, like a Jon Favreau
George
or
Lucas,
something.
Or yeah. But you know what I mean? Like, I really hope they still do location-based shoots for the movies and keep them big. And if that's at the expense of the streaming series having lower budgets, so be it. But I hope not, because there's no reason why Lucasfilm, if Disney still believes in the property, which they should, and Star Wars specifically, shouldn't be able to get big budgets the way Marvel is. And Marvel is churning out way more product than Star Wars. So you would think each Star Wars project has a pretty solid budget behind it because it's not having to be spread out through 30 different things. So I want the movies back so bad, man. And it comes back to Kenobi for me. As much as I love it, and it was an intimate story, so it didn't need to be as grand in terms of like spectacle, it made me miss the big budget movie. I want to go on an adventure, and like The Rise of Skywalker gave that to me, man. A lot of people don't love that movie. I felt like I was on an adventure watching that movie, going to all these different locations, and they felt real, and the big Kajimi set that they built and stuff like that. Like, I want that again. And you could tell me the story that you tell in 7 to 8 hours on Disney Plus in 2.5 hours, and I don't feel shortchanged. Mm-hmm. There's something different about how they tell stories in a movie that still can carry just as much, if not more, weight than a TV series. So like Darth Vader's screen time in the original trilogy. What is it, like 45 minutes?
45
minutes?
Oh, in the original trilogy, all three.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was like no.
Like you're telling me that's his story isn't told better or feels bigger and more impactful and complete than whatever 3 hours we saw of Boba Fett on screen in the Book of Boba Fett. There's no way you're making that argument against it. So
I have another like wrench here, and I don't know if this flies in the face of our discussion or adds to it, but I kind of remember there was a little bit of a distinction that either was made by like Kathleen Kennedy specifically, or some sort of announcement of like how Disney or how Star Wars is going to be approached on Disney Plus. But they made this sort of like drew this line in the sand that said there won't be movies that are exclusive for Disney Plus. And I remember at the time the vibe around that was like, oh, thank God, they're gonna do the movies in the theaters. It's gonna be awesome, and then Disney Plus is gonna exist for these TV shows. And now, I'm sorry, I bumped my microphone. And now I am sort of feeling like, you know what? I'm not going to argue against getting the movie released in the theater. I like that. We've obviously talked a lot about the experience of being in a group of people and all cheering at the Star Wars logo as it pops up on the screen. But I'm also kind of wondering, like, hey man, you know what would have been awesome too? The Book of Boba Fett movie instead of a 7-part series. I almost would have been okay if you said, you know what else we're doing? At the end of Mandalorian, he comes out, he shoots, and takes the throne. They kind of do that whole thing. And then that's the announcement that they're doing a 2-hour Book of Boba Fett movie for Disney Plus exclusive. I would have been like...
It would have been called something different probably.
No, I get that. I get that. But my point being like, hey, Boba Fett has some other stories we want to tell. And we don't feel like there's a lot there for a whole series or anything crazy like that. But I can tell you what, we tell this story in 2 hours, and anytime any one of the Boba Fett fans want to go back to it, it has rewatchability, digestibility. You can pop it on. 2 hours of Boba Fett, killing people and riding Rancors, like, and it theoretically could have had better visual effects because they didn't have to pay people to be on screen for 3 times as long. Or whatever. I don't know, man.
Now, are you saying just that, or because you had a couple of weeks ago brought up an alternative? It'd be like, here's the series version, here's the movie version. My only issue with that would be fans arguing over, well, that didn't make it to the movie version, so that's not as canon or something.
Yeah, that's a different argument altogether. I'm saying I almost feel at this point now, because we're getting so much, The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, Kenobi are so much content that I almost would feel relieved if they just said, hey, we're going to do this story about this character in this time frame, like The Acolyte, for instance. Great. I'm sure I'm going to love it. It's going to be a cool show. But if they just said, hey, we're doing The Acolyte, it's about a dark side user or someone who's hunting dark side artifacts or something like that. It's not going to the theaters, but it's going to be a movie set in the Star Wars universe. It's 2 hours long. I mean, we're watching Netflix movies all the time. They're just like, they're random. They're about like, like this car chase gang or something like that. It's like, whatever, it doesn't have to be anything crazy and epic. It can be crazy and epic within its own singular one story,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I would be okay with a Disney Plus released movie. I wouldn't shy at it being in a theater, but I'm saying, like, I don't know, man. If you want
like a one-off, you're saying, like, do that.
If you want to cut the stories down or something, like, had they presented Book of Boba Fett as not a series but a one-time Boba Fett movie that's a 2-hour story, and it still was the same story, just like this, I feel like fans would have been like, oh, it wasn't in the theaters. Like, does that automatically make it less cool because it was a shorter run but not released in theaters? I'm like, I don't know, man.
Or if they felt like, man, we can probably cut this down to 2:30, but we'd really be cutting out a lot of stuff to make that happen. Do part 1 and part 2 then. Just do 2 movies.
Yeah.
Pop them out one week, the next one 3 months later or something. Like,
boom.
Yeah.
Let people hang on it a little for 3 months instead of the 7 weeks thing.
I don't think anything is. I don't know, because I don't have friends inside the sacred walls. However, I can imagine there's not things that are just like, no, that's off limits. I think they're at the point now where they're like, we need ideas and we're open to figuring out what this is, because this is still very young.
Please put in the comments, like, if you think there's an idea that we didn't talk about, or if one of these are like, oh shoot, yeah, I absolutely would welcome a 2-hour one-off thing just for Disney Plus.
Yeah,
like a movie.
Say they bring back a saga style thing for Rey. I'm not saying it has to be called episode 10 or anything, but say there's like there's a new 5 movie series coming out to continue the adventures after episode 9 with Rey and the gang and a new enemy. There's an older Ezra, Grogu's there. Like, holy cow, that's a big thing. That could be the theater stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Then, like you're saying, what if there's a Cobb Vanth Western story to tell in a movie? Bang, Disney Plus.
It doesn't have to be a TV show. Just I want to watch the Cobb Vanth movie set in the Star Wars universe.
Fistful of dollars, but with Cobb Vanth.
Yeah, and it's just him and his one thing, and it doesn't have to connect to anything else. It's just like a side story. And people could be like, hey, man, like, I don't even watch it. You don't even have to watch Star Wars. You don't have to watch Mandalorian. It doesn't connect to anything. Put in Cobb Vanth and the Vengeance of the High Noon or whatever, and you're going to have a fun time just watching Timothy Oliphant, do
his thing,
these intruders of his town or whatever. I'm okay with that, man. Like, that would be so cool. We'd enjoy it. We'd bring it up every once in a while, revisit it,
rewatch it.
Yeah, because it's easy to rewatch instead of a 6-part series.
Yes,
we're getting
because I'm not turning on, chapter 4 of Book of Boba Fett. It's just not happening. Or part 3, whatever. Or chapter 3. And you know what Cobb Vanth has to say to Kathleen Kennedy? Think it through. Man, well, I think we covered most of it. I know we're probably up against time. We'll have to obviously revisit it when Lacey's back, because I know she's really gunning for return of Rey and all them in the future too. So certainly something we'll have to revisit as more comes out. But that does take us towards the end of the show here. So before we get out of here, again, hit up Lacey at Lacey Gilleran on Twitter and Instagram. But we got to thank our patrons, especially our generals and spice runners. Obviously, if you want to support the show, patreon.com/resistance broadcast. Tiers are starting at just $2 a month. We are working behind the scenes on some ideas for the future of our Patreon. We'll keep you posted on that. But if you want access to all of our bonus content, or if you just want to support what we do, either way, there's a lot of cool stuff there. We even have a chat at our tier 3 and above, a Discord server. It's like the old days, like pre the Last Jedi battles. Everyone gets along really well. It's a really good time, and we have a lot of different channels and stuff. Like, James, we have a channel on just toys in there. Like, we have a dad joke channel. It's crazy.
It's like an old AIM group.
yeah, it's really cool. So patreon.com/resistance broadcast. Tiers start at just $2 a month. We appreciate any and all support, and as you climb the ranks, there's more perks and benefits, including if you're a general or spice runner, you can be featured on the show. We do monthly live calls, a lot of cool stuff. But a shout out to our generals: CARMELO, John RISI, JETTA Rosewater, Paul Olson, Frank Grande, Darth Hurricane, John Charlton, Nick KRATZ, Christian Morales, Brian Smith, Matt Chitty, DANI, Mike Ramori, Matt Heath, Chris White, Brendan McLaughlin, Count Pepto, Samuel Zielk, and Val TRICHKOV. And Spice Runners: David Probus, Neil Shaw, Kendall GELNER. Great Pod Race Monday, buddy.
Yeah.
Ryan WAARA, Dave HORNAK, Micah Harrison, Thomas Hennessy, Andrew Staley, and Jeremy Myers. Thank you, and thank all of our patrons for all your support. StarWarsNewsNet.com is where you want to go for all of your Star Wars news, reviews, editorials, information, and more. You can find me there writing and editing. And, of course, on Twitter at Johnny Hoey. And my movie podcast, Just Like the Movies. Going to be taking a bit of a break today. I'm actually heading to Pennsylvania to hang out with my co-host, Mike. We've been best friends for quite a long time. So we're taking a little hiatus from the pod to actually spend time together. So we may post stuff on social media or something like that. But we'll pick you guys back up with that in a few weeks. We're going to do Dirty Harry. But anyway, enough from me. James, how about you, buddy?
Twitter and Instagram are places that I post things to sometimes, both using the handle at Myra Trunks.
That is true. That is absolutely true. Are you excited? By the way, we haven't really talked about it much. Are you fired up for Bad Batch yet, or are you not there yet? You want to get to Andor first?
I don't know, man. Bad Batch to me, I saw someone recently, they were like, this is what I'm the most hyped for. And Bad Batch was at the bottom of that list. And I was like, okay, Like, I could kind of understand that. What is the reasoning? And the reasoning was it was too long. And I fully agree with that, man. Season 1 was 16 episodes. And I'm like, that crosses 4 months, if not 5 months.
Lot, man. Yeah.
I'm like, 5 months of reviewing that show. That's crazy. So to me, like, in some ways, when I think about the Bad Batch, it kind of stresses me out to think, like, how are we going to do that? How are we going to handle that? And I know it's me, and I've kind of talked about bringing in, with you guys. I haven't really announced this on the show or anything like that, but I was kind of thinking about doing it with a friend, kind of my own mic, if you will, to kind of, chat with that person about it. So we'll see how it goes, but I'm thinking this is also dropping somewhere in the time of, like, it might be just right after Andor finishes or something. So it's like, oh my
November
gosh.
or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah, and that may lead right into Mando 3. Yeah.
No, it'll probably be still going on.
Before you know it, we're in London.
Well, if Bad Batch drops in November, then it will be all of November, all of December, all of January, and all of February.
And then Mando starts in February.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Anyway, they're like, guys, just end the show. All right, we will. Yeah. We hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. Lacey will return. The return of the Jedi. She will be back on Monday. So we will see her then. But we hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. And we'll see you next time with another episode right here on the Resistance Broadcast. See you around, kids.